What's up, Tamers? Welcome back to the other decks. My name's Casual Dobo, and it's been a minute. Apologies for being AFK for so long. The last video we did was actually a BT5 Hexablow deck that we did maybe late August, early September. So it's been a little bit, life sort of did some crazy things. I did get to visit a lot of family, but work mainly picked up. And I was just way too into it to be able to do anything else. But now that things have sort of calmed down, slowed down a little bit for me personally, I thought now was a good time to get back into the content creation game. But for everyone who has stuck around and subscribed in the meantime, thank you so much. It does mean a whole lot to me as someone who is doing YouTube Digimon content part-time, hoping to do it full-time, but just not in the cards right now. But I love this game. I hope that shows in these videos, and I appreciate the support that you have given me, while during the times I was active and during the times where I took a little bit of a pause. But no more pausing, because I am excited to bring over some BT6 stuff. Last time we did a video was on a whole different meta. But no, what actually kind of inspired me to create, and if you're watching, the thumbnail, you've seen it. It's a pretty janky deck. But what really inspired me was watching a Taste of Victory video, a couple actually. Huge fan of Taste of Victory. But in one, Tasty was playing against someone who was using a red-green Gallant deck. If I haven't mentioned already, links down below in the description. Go check it out. I believe his name is Bryce. Seems like a cool person. But I was just super excited that someone else built this janky deck that I've been like snowballing in my head for a little bit ever since I built One Punch Man. I saw the way that he built it, saw the way that it played, and was just like, yes, someone else is building multicolored jank in BT6. Let's get back into the game. So today I'm going to be presenting my version of red-green Gallant, or something that I'm calling Gallant Scissors, or Royal Scissors. I don't know. Let me know if there's a preferred name for this deck. But yeah, to talk about sort of the tech that we want to do here, we are looking to essentially build up a board state in which Gallantmon's effect can take place. If you don't know what Gallantmon does, its main ability is when attacking, you get to trash one security card from your opponent's security for every 10 cards that they have in their trash. Now, if you combine this with the powers of Dimension Scissor, which is a green option, you should be able to attack multiple times as long as you're battling and successfully surviving against another Digimon. Now, you might be asking yourself, hey, they're not always going to be suspended. This has very limited utility. It does, unless you combine it with something that's coming out in BT6 called Judgment of the Blade, which allows for a Digimon with Huckmon in its name, or something with Royal Knights in its type, to attack unsuspended Digimon. So the idea is you need to have Gallant out on the field and its ability able to be used, but with 4 memory, you can cast Dimension Scissor, assuming you have the requirements, and then cast Judgment of the Blade onto your Gallant, swing into your opponent's security, or into your opponent's Digimon, and just simply melt the security away. And then, if you have, them down to 1 security, you can swing in with your Gallant, melt the security, and then swing in for a game, essentially. So, it's a very fun, wonky combo. I imagine it's not going to go off as many times as you'd like it to. So this is pretty much a fun deck, but it can catch some people by surprise at your locals, just like my One Punch Man did recently. So without further ado, let's stop talking about the tech and jump into the deck profile. And here we have it. Here is our monitor with all of the cards from the deck, and like any good deck profile, we have to start off with our Digitama, our level 2s. So first off, we do have 4 copies of Yokomon, and this is actually something that I learned from Bryce's deck in the Taste of Victory deck profile. But this is one thing that I learned from Bryce's deck, is Yokomon's inheritable ability. I can speak. When attacking an opponent's Digimon, this Digimon gets plus 1000 DP for the turn. Bryce noted that's not a once per turn ability. So if you do put Dimension Scissor onto your Gallant, assuming Yokomon's underneath, especially with Judgment of the Blade, if you're doing what this deck wants to do, you can keep DP boosting until you get like some ridiculous amount of DP. And there's other cards that we have in here that are also DP boost. The idea being you want to be able to swing over some of the larger things that are larger than Gallimond. But yeah, we have 4 copies of that. And then for our 5th Digitama, we do have 1 copy of Digimon on your turn. While there are 5 or more cards in your opponent's trash, this Digimon gets plus 1000 DP. So once again, it's DP boost. It is conditional on having 5 or more cards in your opponent's trash, but if your strategy is going the way you want it to, obviously we need 10 for Gallimond to affect. So you're going to get to 5 at some point. Next up, going over to our level 3s, our rookies, we have 4 copies of Monodramon. Now Monodramon is just a good, cheap, vanilla rookie. 2 costs to play, 3000 DP, mostly here to hard play or get that cheap Digivolution of 0, but mostly get there to get the ball rolling. Moving on to our next rookie, we do have 4 copies of Guilmon. So this has the inheritable on your turn. When there are 5 or more cards in your opponent's trash, this Digimon gets plus 1000 DP. Same effect as Digimon, here for redundancy, just in case, you know, we do need to hard play him for 3. And then finally, rounding out our level 3s, we do have 4 copies of the starter deck Agumon. Now this has just unconditional, this Digimon gets plus 1000 DP. So very nice to have. Next up, we do have my first spicy pick of the deck, and that is 2 copies of Arbormon. So this comes out in BT6 and works like the Agunimon and Lobomon from previous sets, where this can digivolve onto a Tamer for 2 and treat the Tamer as if it's a level 3. So obviously, in order to get Dimension Scissor out, we do need a green card out on the field. Normally, this is done via Tamer, so you'll see later, we do have Izzy and Mimi. But normally, and you'll see this especially when considering what I built in One Punch Man, the Tamer kind of just sits there, or at least it did in previous sets. Now, since we have a hybrid Digimon that can digivolve off of Tamer, we can sort of alleviate that problem. The Tamer itself just has a little bit more utility, and so we like that. The other thing is, if you don't have a Tamer out, but you're kind of ready to go into your combo, you have Dimension Scissor, you have Gallimon out on the field, this can act as your green requirement, and you just have to hard play for 5, which in the grand scheme of things, not that bad. But we have 2 copies of that, just in case one gets destroyed for some reason. Next up, going into our level 4s, we do have 2 copies of BT1 Greymon. Once again, this is unconditional DP boost on your turn. This Digimon gets plus 2000 DP. Next up in our champion lineup, we do have 1 copy of Agunimon. This is the basic Agunimon that can digivolve off a red Tamer for 2. And this is mostly treated as a surprise sneaky hit. In case, you know, the Gallimon combo gets rid of all security but no other attacks, so you can't win game. Digivolve for 2 onto a Tamer that we have, and then swing in for game. Alternatively, you can just use it as a normal champion. 2 costs to digivolve, pretty standard for other champions, so we like that. Next up in our champion lineup, we do have 4 copies of Monochromon. This is our 1 cost to digivolve blocker. Just very memory efficient, able to get over into the ultimates just a little bit faster if we want to play that strategy. But overall, just a solid blocker to have. And then the other champion we have is 1 copy of Cordramon. This is our 2 cost to digivolve blocker from the starter deck, and another path where me and Bryce sort of differentiate between how we're building these decks. He puts in a couple more blockers than I do. Admittingly, 5 blockers seems a little bit light, but I had to make some concessions, and the second copy of Cordramon was one of them. But I do think blockers is important, especially as you're trying to get to the mid to late game, because, you know, this deck is really a mid to late game deck that will shine in those stages. If you're playing something that has a lot of aggression, something that plays really well in the early game, Rookie Rush, Imperial Dramon kind of come to mind. I think this is going to struggle a little bit. So this is a good, nice way to sort of stall that kind of stuff. Now, moving over to our ultimates, we do have 2 copies of Ground Dramon. This is just a really good, efficient, vanilla ultimate to have. 5 costs to play in case you have to hard play it 5 cost is, like I said, with Arbor, in the grand scheme of things, not that bad. Also 2 to Digivolve, which is fantastic. Moving on over, we do have 2 copies of Metal Greymon. This is the secret rare from BT1, and this is once again inheritable. This Digimon gets plus 3000 DP on your turn. It also does have some active abilities, security attack plus 2, but you lose 5 memory when attacking. So not necessarily looking to attack, mostly for that inheritable, for that pure DP boost. And to round out our level 5s, we do have 4 copies of level 5 War Growlmon. Now I chose this over other ultimates, mainly for its when Digivolving ability. If you have a red tamer in play, you get to delete one of your opponent's Digimon with 3000 DP or less. It kind of lends itself to the strategy of building up your opponent's trash by deleting one of their Digimon, and also it'll lean into its inheritable effect of, on your turn, while there are 5 or more Digimon in your opponent's trash, Digimon gets plus 1000 DP. An inheritable we've seen time and time again that's going to come in handy once we get 10. Next up, going into our megas, we do have the namesake of the deck, the key component to our strategy, 4 copies of Gallantmon. Now, when Digivolving, if you have a red tamer in play, you get to delete one of your opponent's Digimon with 6000 DP or less. Once again, going into that strategy, but the main thing we're looking for is, when attacking, trash one of your opponent's security cards for every 10 cards in their trash. As I mentioned in tech, trying to get Dimension Scissor out, trying to get Judgment of the Blade onto it, and then just swing into our opponent's Digimon for that free melting ability. And when you melt a security card like this in this manner, those security option like effects don't trigger, because it hasn't undergone battle. It just simply is melted. So could be a very interesting anti-security control plan of attack. So it's pretty interesting in this meta. However, I didn't want to leave it at just 1 mega, just because sometimes I feel that only having 1 mega makes the deck a little bit too predictable. You sort of understand what's trying to happen, and kind of makes it a little bit easier to wrap your head around and counterattack. So I do have 2 copies of Blitz Greymon in here as my secondary mega. So Blitz Greymon does have piercing, but the main thing I wanted here was its when Digivolving ability. You can trigger D-Digivolve 2 on one of your opponent's Digimon. So once again, this kind of lends itself to the overall strategy of building our opponent's trash, because those 2 Digimon go to the trash. There's 2 more in there. That way we can sort of set ourselves up for the Gallantmon play. Also, if they happen to attack with that Digimon and you D-Digivolve it, you can then use Blitz Greymon to pierce in and attack and sort of melt 1 additional security. And at 12,000 DP, that's really not a bad call, unless you're, playing against someone who has a bunch of level 7s in their deck. So that's all Digimon. Now heading over into our options, we do have 3 copies of Dimension Scissor. This says, one of your Digimon gains the following effect: when this Digimon deletes an opponent's Digimon in battle and survives, unsuspended. And we are pairing that up with 3 copies of Judgment of the Blade. This comes out in BT6 and says, one of your Digimon with Huckmon in its name or Royal Knight in its type can attack your opponent's unsuspended Digimon for the turn. Unfortunately, the security effect doesn't necessarily help us, because it will just simply get added to our hand. We have no Sistermon in here, as you've seen. But for 1 cost, this is fantastic to work with, primarily Jessamon, but also Gallantmon. And then to round out the options, we do have 2 copies of Gaia Force. Obviously this is fantastic to see if it's in our security, but even if it's in our hand, depending on the board state that our opponent's working with, say they clear our board, dire situation, we can use this to eliminate 1 very problematic Digimon from their board. And then to round out the deck, we are going into our Tamers. So for green, we do have 3 copies of Izzy Izumi and Mimi Tachikawa. So at the start of your turn, if your opponent has suspended Digimon in play, you gain 2 memory. Admittingly, we are only using it for that effect and for us to use Dimension Scissor. The secondary effect on this does not matter. But overall, this is a very solid tamer to splice in to any deck, really. And then to round out our tamers and the last card of the deck, we do have 3 copies of Tai Kamiya. So at the start of your turn, if you have 2 or less, set your memory to 3. So Tai is a memory tamer, which is good for us. And then all of our red Digimon with 4 more Digivolution cards gain security attack +1, which is absolutely fantastic. Obviously there's a lot of red, and so if we were swinging in with Blitzgreymon, this would help out. Even if we had to do an early swing with Gallimon, say they didn't have 10 security, we can do that as well. So there's a couple of ways to get rid of our opponent's security without necessarily relying on Gallimon's ability. So yeah, there is the deck profile for BT6 red-green Gallant Scissors. There's a couple of things that I think could be changed here. I really thought about using starter deck Tai instead of memory tamer Tai, but I think the memory tamer is more important, to be honest, so that we can at least get a guaranteed dimension scissor. But overall, I think it's a very interesting deck. I think it's a spicy deck. Will it top all of the format at all the major tournaments? Probably not. But is this a sort of fun deck to kind of bring to locals, catch them by surprise? I think so. And I think it does well against something like security control that wants you to attack into security to activate those really powerful abilities, and it just simply won't do that. But yeah, I think it's a fun deck. I think Bryce from Taste of Victory's community thinks it's a fun deck. And I hope to see other people kind of come out and support it and play it and give it a shot, because I think it has potential to do some real wonky, interesting things in the BT6 meta. But that's only my opinion. Let me know what you think down in the comments below. If you liked the video, give it a like. For more content like this, we'll do some more spicy decks. We'll do some meta decks. It'll be nice and varied. Hell, we might even do some gameplay. You never know. But to catch all of that, hit the subscribe button, subscribe to the channel, hit the bell for notifications. That way you'll know the next time I post a video, ideally within 2 months. And yeah, thank you again for all the support. We're currently at 92 subscribers. That's incredible. I'm hoping we get to 100 soon. And I'm hoping that you watching this will be a part of it. So thank you again, and I'll catch you next time.